When you're making a travel video, you want to try to accomplish two things: a great story and great visuals. But both of those usually require a lot of pre-planning, shot listing, location scouting, and more. That is why today's video is all about how you can create a travel video with no plan, no shot list, no script whatsoever. What's up everyone? I hope you're doing well. If you're new to my channel, my name is Chloe and I create travel videos and travel content tutorials to get you inspired to travel the world and capture your journey along the way. So let's get right into it. First of all, you can go one of two ways when making your travel video: a linear storyline or a non-linear storyline. A linear one will be a lot easier to film and execute and also easier to edit. Basically, a linear storyline is following a chronological order of events. So it's following your journey from point A to point B and then showing your final destination. All the clips are in order of when it plays out. A non-linear storyline can be anything else that's a little bit more conceptual, so it can be about a theme of a specific place and not so much about the exact journey getting there. So assuming you're going with a linear timeline, which is easier, there are a few things you can do to make sure you do a good job at it and to make your life a lot easier. And that is, make sure to film a lot of transition scenes. And this doesn't mean transitions like cool whip pans and fancy editing, not like that. It's shots that are showing movement. So that can be feet walking from one place to another, cars driving, anything that shows movement from one location to another. Second is, make sure to get establishing shots. This is basically a super wide shot of your location to set the scene and show your viewer where you are. And finally, it's always more interesting when you make travel videos a little bit more relatable and not perfect. So what I mean by that is film everything, even if it's mistakes. So if you get a flat tire, if you get lost, anything like that is always really entertaining. Tip number 2 is actually my favorite tip, and that is to utilize voiceovers. Now these are great because you don't even have to think about them before your trip, it is all done in post. Voiceovers can help you tell a story and fill in any blanks that you might not have captured footage for. So you can always overlay it on top of B-roll to give a little bit more context when your video doesn't actually match what you're trying to say. For example, with a linear timeline, if you're starting your video with a packing sequence, loading the car, or driving to a new location, you can put a voiceover on top talking about the start of the journey, where you're going, and how you guys are feeling leading up to the journey. Tip number 3 is more is more. When you don't have a plan, remember to capture as much footage as you can. And what I mean by this is, on your journey, film every single moment, even if you don't think it's an important one. You might actually need more footage to work with. When you're editing, if you give yourself more options, it'll be a lot easier to craft a story, especially since you started off without a plan. You want to have the most as possible to work with. But keep in mind that I don't mean rushing and just filming this. Really, it is quantity over quality, but just try and get as much quantity as you can. When embarking on spontaneous adventures, it's essential to have peace of mind. And that's why I'm really excited to share with you today's sponsor, Safety Wing, a travel insurance for travelers like us, with coverage in over 180 countries. Their comprehensive coverage ensures you can focus on capturing those moments and making memories without worrying about potential mishaps like lost luggage, delayed flights, medical emergencies, getting sick, anything travel related, and more. So if you're a fellow traveler and fellow content creator, I encourage you to check out Safety Wing to safeguard your journey and enjoy a stress-free trip. Check it out, I've left the link in the description below or right here. My 4th tip is always have your camera out and ready to film. You never know when you're going to stumble across something beautiful, and we all know that with traveling, unexpected amazing moments often happen spontaneously. It's really hard to craft a specific scene when you're on the road. So just always have your camera ready so that you can just grab it, film, even if it's on your phone, and capture those moments. Tip number 5, ask strangers or the people you're with to talk to the camera. Don't be afraid to do this randomly and just pick up the camera and point it at someone and ask them to say something, or record someone when they're giving you information. Of course, ask them to make sure that they're comfortable with it, but people usually are. You'll be really surprised by the interesting stories and interesting perspectives you'll get, because obviously everyone's journey is different. So it'll add a really nice angle to your video. And in line with this, try and capture some natural moments. So don't make all of your shots super pristine and well thought out. It's also nice to include some candid moments of, if you're on a trip with your friends, everybody sitting around the table drinking their coffee and chatting. Little things like that, little spontaneous moments. Tip number 6, capture a big variety of shots. Some examples of these would be establishing shots, so to set the scene and show the viewer where you are, wide shots, which are just a little bit less wide than an establishing shot, but still kind of put you in the place where your subject is standing. Close-up shots and detail shots, so those are just getting the little things that make each place what it is. So let's say you're visiting a beautiful temple and what really makes it stand out is all the gold on the walls and the patterns. Get close-ups of all of that so that the viewer really sees what's special about that place. Next would be unexpected shots. So get crazy with your angles, get creative. Film from underneath things, from up top, through things. It will really elevate your visuals. Having a variety of these will really help you in post when you're editing to help you tell a story. Little bonus tip for this section of what shots to get, try and think about transitions while you're filming, but simple ones. So film a scene and try and end it by just whipping to the side, and then for the one that would go after that, try and start the shot by whipping into screen, and then you can put those two together and it will be a really cool transition. Another really easy one is just to have something cross the screen. And that can be just by moving your camera and having a tree trunk pass it, having someone walk by, a car drive by, anything, and then you can use masking to create that transition. Super easy to do and will look really cool. Tip number 7. Now this has to do with coming up with your concept in post. This is gonna be a hard part because you're gonna have to come up with an idea if you're not just doing your linear timeline. And a great way to do this, and something that will make your life a lot easier, is to review all your footage really thoroughly. If you know exactly what you're working with and you can kind of picture the different shots that you have, your life will be a lot easier, because when you're editing, if you come up with a certain section for your story, you can think, oh yeah, I do have shots of someone riding a motorbike that could fit in really well there, and it will just speed up your workflow a lot. Tip number 8 is just vlog everything. Even though it's a bit uncomfortable to talk to the camera, especially if you're not used to it, it can really add a nice human element to your videos. It'll give people something to relate to, and people often watch those videos because they're curious about your life and the things that you're doing. So by talking to the camera, you'll keep people interested. And also, it will really help you tell the story, since you can literally tell the story of what's going on. This can be anything from where you are, how you're feeling, where you're going, what's happened so far, your first impressions of a place. It's a great one to use in moments of stress because it makes the video a little bit dramatic, which is nice. So like, let's say you get lost or have a flat tire, talk to the camera and just say how you're feeling. Tip number 9 is just about varying your shot types a little bit. And what I mean by this is try and not just use 24 frames per second, but also try and get slow motion shots, time lapses, hyperlapses. By getting some of those, you can add many different interesting elements to your video. My 10th and final tip for you is all about general shooting advice. So some things to keep in mind when you're capturing all of this beautiful footage on your journey is to make sure to take your time. Don't just take a bunch of shots and not think twice about them. Line up your shot, make sure it's beautifully composed, and then check it when you're done to make sure you don't need to refilm. Another thing is make sure you're stabilizing yourself properly, and I don't mean having a gimbal. Make sure that you're holding the camera with 3 points of contact, which is ideal, so you can hold it up against your chest and hold the sides, or holding the camera by the lens often also gives you stability because you can press your arm against your body. Shaky footage can be okay, but sometimes when it's too shaky, it's distracting and that cannot be fixed in post, and you've ruined your footage. Another trick for shooting that I think is so important, I think it's the most valuable thing I've learned from, well, I've learned a lot of valuable things from the art of documentary, but this one really stuck with me and changed the way that I film and mainly the way that I edit. And that is hold your shots. Even if you're filming and you think the scene is done, keep filming for another 5 seconds. It seems like a lot, but it is so helpful. So as a general rule of thumb, try not to get any clips that are under 10 seconds. And there you have it. With these simple tricks, you can make an epic travel video with no plan. Just remember to choose a linear or non-linear timeline and to put a lot of effort in post to come up with a solid storyline, because story is the most important thing. Remember that more is more, capture a lot of footage, use a voiceover, always have your camera out, don't be afraid to ask people to talk to the camera, capture a variety of shots, know your footage well, vlog everything, get slow motion and time lapses, and pay attention to the shooting tips that I mentioned to you, and you'll be sure to have an awesome travel video with no plan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.